Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, February the 22nd, 2024. So I've got two topics today. First topic is the full moon, which takes place over the weekend. I just want to do a preview of this full moon. Just consider how it might affect the world. You know, I do understand that YouTube astrologers do like to talk a lot about full moons, go on and on about them. I think often in quite a positive way. We want to find meaning from full moons. We want to, we want to see a full moon, see how, see what sort of wonderful impact it's going to have on our destiny and our life, and keep it positive. Am I positive about this full moon? Well, I mean, it's just another full moon. Full moons happen quite regularly, once a month by definition, and we need to look at it. But I suppose the thing about this full moon is it's conjunct the Mercury-Saturn midpoint. Is that positive? I don't know. It's often, it's often with Mercury-Saturn, we think of connotations of saying goodbye. So this might, we have sort of harvest moons and blue moons, and this full moon is a bit of a goodbye moon in a way. And so I'll be discussing that later in this video. Another thing I want to talk about is, I'm afraid it's really indulgent, but quite recently I talked about Chiron, and in the comments section, one of the commenters, Lisa Michelle, she often makes some very interesting comments, and she suggested to me that Chiron can relate to the grandfather, and I do have issues with my own Chiron because I have an exact Chiron-Jupiter conjunction in my chart, and so it is quite difficult to work out what your Chiron means if you've got an exactly conjunct another planet. So I'm going to be indulgent, and I'm actually going to look at my own chart, and I'm going to explore this hypothesis, which hadn't really occurred to me. It hadn't occurred to me at all before, that Chiron might relate to my grandfather. So I'm going to talk about my grandfather. I know it's completely indulgent. You don't want to know about my grandfather, but I'm going to do it anyway. I suppose I'm trying to kind of show the process by which one tries to give meaning to a planet in a horoscope, and I suppose the horoscope I know best, or should know best, is my own horoscope. But anyway, if you find that too indulgent, this whole video is good. It's got chapters and timestamps, so you don't have to watch it if you don't want to. Okay, let me now look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Thursday, February the 22nd, 2024. So there's a picture, full moon. Just a reminder that there is a full moon over the weekend, and I'm going to be talking a bit about this full moon as I see it. So this is a picture for today, which is Thursday, February the 22nd, 2024. That chart is set for New York. It's not so different than the picture was yesterday. The moon is still in Leo. Of course, now it's in Leo for everyone. Sort of yesterday, there were people that weren't affected by the Leo moon. If you were in Australia and New Zealand, the moon would have been in Cancer for you. So yes, we've got Leo. Leo's moon is in Leo all day long. There are a few differences. You can see that the moon is certainly opposition Venus and Mars. That sort of depends on your time zone a bit. I think if you're in sort of East Asia, New Zealand, Australia, New Zealand, you'd perhaps be feeling this opposition aspect between Venus and Mars more. But the moon is in Leo, Venus and Mars are in Aquarius. Regardless of the exact aspect, we can say that that opposition does exist. There's an opposition feel to it. It's in fixed signs. There could be a certain stubbornness there. Moon opposition Mars, people wanting their way. Moon opposition Venus, perhaps people wanting their way, but there's also a certain sense of indulgence to Moon and Venus, to Moon opposition Venus. Overall, all things being equal, probably Moon opposition Venus, Moon opposition Mars isn't great. It just creates a bit of tension that perhaps we don't need. Also, the Moon is opposition Chiron. You can see that there's the comet and asteroid Chiron, which I will be talking about a bit later with reference to my own chart. There's a comet. There's a comet Chiron at 1653 Aries. At least it was at noon in New York. That's what it is, and the Moon is making a trine to that. Well, it depends how you see Chiron, doesn't it? If you see Chiron as being something of a maverick, then it may be easy to express our individuality. We might want to do things differently. Perhaps with that Moon in Leo, which is quite an individualistic Moon in Leo, we want to do things our own way. We don't necessarily want to follow the crowd. So that's one way in which Moon trine Chiron might be working. Also, there's Chiron as a wounded healer, or perhaps just as a healer. And so with Moon and Leo trine, I've just changed it from Placidus to 0 degrees Aries houses. With Moon trine Chiron, the Moon is sort of how we respond emotionally, and so it may be easy for us, or relatively easy for us to help someone. We can kind of feel that someone might be in trouble or might be wounded, and we can step in and make things better for them. And it really shouldn't take much effort. It's a Moon trine Chiron. It's not a square with Chiron. So in our own small way, we can perhaps make the world a better place, or it may just be focused on one person who needs a bit of help, and we can provide that help. And I don't think it's going to require a lot of effort. Now, I've been talking about the Venus-Mars conjunction, and the Venus-Mars conjunction is now exact today. So you can see it's as close as it gets, pretty much. Noon, Venus is at 7:28 Aquarius, Mars is at 7:17 Aquarius. They are exact. So Venus-Mars as a pair is about charisma. It's about being attractive. It's about perhaps attractive ideas. Venus-Mars in Aquarius. Although there can be a bit of defensiveness about the Venus-Mars conjunction, because we have to remember that Venus is the planet of relationships, and it is conjunct Mars, and Mars is quite an assertive, defensive influence. And so some of us might be a little over-defensive. In terms of safeguarding our boundaries. Yes, it's important to safeguard our boundaries, but we need to make sure that we safeguard our boundaries within limits. We don't have to go over the top to be safe and secure. So I don't know if someone is sort of asking questions that we don't want to answer. There's no need to go ballistic. You can, if you don't want to reveal something, you can be polite about it, and it works both ways. We may find that certain people we meet are being overly defensive, and that might sort of upset the balance a bit. I suppose the key thing is not to overreact. If you see that someone is being a bit angry, don't get upset about it. Just remember, there is a Venus-Mars conjunction in the sky, and and today it is exact. Another aspect today is Mercury quintile Jupiter. So there is Mercury, there is Jupiter. They are 72 degrees apart. So 72 degrees is 1/5 of the circle. And quintiles are about style, about trying to create something, perhaps rather artificially, or it might seem a bit artificial. But with Mercury quintile Jupiter, Mercury and Jupiter as a pair can be about communication. It can be about optimistic communication. So some of us may be making a special effort to communicate optimistically, to see the best in things, or maybe just to talk a lot, maybe just to make a lot of noise. Mercury, communication. Jupiter exaggerates whatever it touches. So Mercury quintile Jupiter would be perhaps a loud and optimistic style, and that's what people feel they need to. That's how people feel they need to express themselves. Is it going to work? Well, it might work, might not work. It depends on the situation. But if you do see someone making a lot of noise, that's not necessarily the person they are. It just may be what they're trying to create, the style they're trying to create. It may be just skin deep. Now, as far as midpoints are concerned, I think there's evidence that a lot of us are trying to get in touch with as many different people as possible, because that Venus-Mars conjunction aspects the Mercury node midpoint. So we have had sort of Mars hitting on a Mercury node midpoint for some time, but now we've got two planets both hitting the Mercury node midpoint at the same time. So the pair of the Mercury node pair relates to networking, contacting lots of people. That's because Mercury is a communication planet. The North Node, at least from a perspective of the German schools of astrology, Ebertin and Witter, the node is about contacts, networking, and so you put Mercury and node together, and you get the concept of communicating on the network, and so then you put Venus and Mars on the Mercury node midpoint, and then it's perhaps communicating charismatically on the network. Being able to communicate our desirability and our attractiveness and our charisma over the network. So that is something that we may be able to work on, and I would have said, that it's a plus. Okay, so that's the overall picture for today. And so, as usual, I want to look at what's going on for the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for the 12 signs for today, which is Thursday, February the 22nd, 2024. Aries, you are feeling pretty positive, I would have said. I think that you're aware of your own creativity. You can see all the things you can do. And I think that you are confident that you can really show the world how creative you are. But when I say show the world, that doesn't mean that you have to take into account the world. You can show the world, yeah, but you don't have to change your message in order to consider outside opinion. If people want to ignore you, well, that's their problem. Because right now, your individuality really matters, and creativity is it's quite a personal thing. Some people like it, some people don't like it. So do what feels comfortable. If you are getting attention, that's great. But if you're not getting attention, if you're not getting praise, you should not let it worry you. But I do understand, Aries, that right now you probably have a certain need to be praised, and it's great if you can get some praise. You probably will get some praise, but if you don't get praise, don't take it to heart, don't take it personally. And there may well actually be a little bit of opposition to what you're doing. Not everyone is going to support what you're doing. I think this is more so if you're in sort of East Asia or Australia, New Zealand, less so if you're in the Americas. But I think it's more. It is going to be a factor. Yeah, there are going to be people who just simply don't entirely like what you're doing, and they might show their disapproval in different ways. People who perhaps should know better. Some of your friends might not be particularly helpful, might not be particularly encouraging. But really, Aries, you shouldn't take that to heart. Also, consider the possibility that your particular way of doing things can be very helpful to at least one other person. And I mean helpful potentially in quite a healing way, because as I said at the introduction to this video, the moon is trine Chiron. And of course, Chiron, remember Chiron is this minor planet and its comet, is moving through your star sign. It's conjunct the North Node. The North Node is potentially about contacts with other people. It's also about where you should be going. And so with the moon trine the Chiron North Node conjunction, you're in a position to make at least one other person feel better about themselves. And how do you do that? Well, you could just pay some attention to them. You could also just sort of energize them. Aries is an energetic sign. Aries can bring life to things. I mean, that is the nature of the ram, busting in, bringing some fire with it. And so, yes, you can cheer someone up, and I don't think you're going to discount other people's problems. You're not going to dismiss them. You're going to listen to an extent. But it's not really just about listening. It's just having an intuitive feeling about what needs to be done, and then just being able to just say the right words. That's probably all it takes. Now, as far as other relationships are concerned, I've been talking about this Venus-Mars conjunction, perhaps ad nauseam. But today the Venus-Mars conjunction is exact, and that means that Venus is right next to right on your Mars, and Mars is your ruling right on Mars. Mars is your ruling planet. So because Venus is a sociable planet, it's about relationships. Yeah, your social skills are going to be really good. You probably shouldn't be restricting your activities to just one person. even if this one person does have a few problems and perhaps you need to take some time to sort this person's problems out. Do consider your social life. Do meet as many people as possible. Right now, people need to meet you because you've got lots to offer. Especially with Venus-Mars conjunction, But of course, Venus and Mars is about desirability. It's about getting close to one other person, and that is something you can do. Though, don't be too defensive. Again, Mars can be defensive. Mars is quite a military planet. Mars is very aware of its boundaries. So, yes, relationships look good, but you do need to have a sort of a fairly relaxed approach. If you're uptight or tactless, then there could be problems. But by and large, I think that the Venus-Mars conjunction, if you handle it correctly, it should be pretty good for relationships on all levels. And we should remember, Venus is a fortunate planet. It is a minor benefic, and it's conjunct your ruling planet. So that should be quite lucky for you. Taurus. In many respects, Taurus, you're not entirely in the mood for dealing with the world and its problems. You might feel that you'd be, better off just sticking to your own territory. Wherever you feel comfortable. And comfort is always important to Taurians. I mean, Taurus is about the earth. It's an earth sign. It's fixed earth. And that means wanting fixed foundations. And I think you're going to perhaps be looking for comfort. And, you'd perhaps rather be a large fish or a large bull. You'd rather be a large bull in a small field than a small bull in a. Hold on, let's get that right. A large bull in a small field, or that's kind of what you'd prefer to be. A small bull in a large field, that's kind of not really what you're going to want to be. That's fine, but of course there's a danger then that you might be limiting your social horizons. Perhaps you feel that's the right thing to do, but there are opportunities out there. Still, remember, there is this build-up in Aquarius. That build-up has been starting to dissipate because planets have been moving out of Aquarius. In particular, recently we've had the Sun moving out of Aquarius. But, Aquarius from a Taurian perspective is quite a career-orientated sign. You want to make progress, and progress you can make. But somehow this progress today might feel a bit uneasy. You might feel that you have to progress through conflict, that you have to deal with people who have perhaps a different view of the world than you. And that might be a little stressful. You might think that you haven't got what it takes. But I think what makes the difference, what can make the difference, is basically your own optimism. Remember, Taurus is your star sign, your moon sign, your ascendant sign, depending on however you're reading these, my forecasts. Some people do it through their sun sign, others through their moon sign, others through their ascendant sign. But you have Jupiter moving through Taurus, and Jupiter's been moving through Taurus for a long time. And Jupiter is about being optimistic. It's about looking beyond everyday strife, everyday problems, and seeing the bigger picture. And so, if you are in a situation where you feel uneasy, where there's conflict, you need to sort of try to see the bigger picture. You can see the bigger picture. Make a real effort, and remind yourself that you are on firm ground here. You don't have to feel insecure. You're not insecure. You really do understand. You understand what's going on, and no one's going to knock you off balance. And with that approach, you can perhaps move out of this small field and move into a larger field, and know that it is the right thing to do. Now, over the last few days, I've been talking about Venus-Mars conjunction. I do think this Venus-Mars conjunction is important. That's why I've talked about it so much. Today, this Venus-Mars conjunction is exact, and this Venus-Mars conjunction may be about finally understanding someone. Maybe you've had, over the last few days, a few difficulties dealing with someone, relating to them. Perhaps you've been somewhat wary of them. But now, as you get really close to them, as you really understand them, as you really see someone up close, it all starts to make sense. And I think this actually does give you more confidence. And so relationships of all kinds, I think they can work quite well, because I think you're going to be confident about your understanding of the other person. We don't like nasty surprises. And so if you have an understanding of someone, then you're able to predict what they're going to do next. And if you can predict what someone is going to do next, then you can be more trusting. But I'm not saying that you should spend all your time focusing on one person. Today, your networks, your social networks, are buzzing. Actually, if you look at it, they are buzzing. There are lots of people out there who need very little encouragement to interact with you. So think about all the people you know, all the people you are in touch with, all the people you've been in touch with recently. You can gain an enormous amount from them if you just put a tiny amount of effort in. So yes, Taurus, things are looking good. Gemini. Gemini, you continue to have quite a lot to say. I mean, okay, you could say that you always have quite a lot to say because you're a Gemini. But at the moment, yes, there are things that have to be said. But it's important that you just don't say the first thing that comes into your head. Not necessarily because it's going to cause damage, but because it's going to be a waste of breath. That's not something you want to do, waste your breath or say something that's sort of trivial. You need to consider what is the point of saying what you're going to say. Indeed, what is the point of being a Gemini? What is the point is actually a question that Geminis are actually asking him all the time. It's an existential issue. I'm a Gemini. I know about existential issues. I'm going to be talking about my own existential issues perhaps a bit later in this video. But all of us Geminis are worried about our existence and what it's there for. And Gemini, one thing you can do today, which would be extremely helpful, would be to make another person's life easier. And I have talked about this for all the signs. I've talked about it in a general sense. But, today the moon is moving through a very communicative sector of your chart, moving through Leo. It's a nice positive fire sign, moon in Leo. And it's making a trine to Chiron. And Chiron is about healing. And so there's something you can say, perhaps do, but I think the words are important, that can really help someone. And it may actually be that you can travel a short distance in order to really make a big difference. And I mean that, I don't mean that in a tree. I said that phrase, make a difference, is just completely overused. But I mean that sincerely. A short journey can make a big difference to someone's life. It's not going to take a lot of your time. And you just need a certain sense of responsibility, and you don't actually have to make an effort. It's just about being yourself. But perhaps also thinking a little bit about your existence and what you're here on the planet for. There is a reason. I think if you didn't think there was any reason at all, maybe you wouldn't be watching this video. Maybe you're looking for some kind of reason. Every Gemini is. It's tough finding reason, but you can actually find reason, a reason and a purpose through other people and by helping other people. I'm not talking about having to spend all day helping someone. Just a visit. Maybe it's a friend needs some support. It's not going to take much of your time. So consider the opportunities that are out there. Now, some Geminis do have a certain reputation for being a little bit negative, a bit downbeat, for asking questions that don't really have to be answered, and being questions, so asking difficult questions, and also and sounding a bit negative. I'm perhaps an example of that kind of Gemini, maybe. But today, Gemini, you can make a really special effort to be optimistic, to be positive. Because if you make that effort, you can really be that person. You can be positive. You can see the world in its best possible light. And it might seem impossible, might seem difficult, but you can do it. Just don't be self-conscious. Just try to be positive. Adopt a positive style. Because if you adopt a positive style, it's not only the case that you're going to be able to make people feel better about themselves, but people are going to feel better about you. And this is going to be really good news in terms of relationships. Relationships through a bit of positivity on your part, not much, but just by following through on that attempt. And it is all about an attempt. It's trying to be positive. It may not come naturally, but just make that effort. And if you make that effort, I think you'll be surprised that how positive a response is from other people. And as a result, your links with other people can improve. Cancer. Well, Cancer, the moon does continue moving through Leo. It's Leo is not the most exciting sign from a Cancerian perspective. It's a sign that's it's often connected with stuff like money and what you own, and that might be a certain concern for you. I'm not saying it is going to be a concern for you, what you own, but it might be a concern. And you might feel that certain things have to be negotiated, and it might also feel that those negotiations aren't entirely smooth. Also, you may be a bit wary of certain other people. People you know, but today you might feel that they're just being a bit too much. Um, so you might want to, you might want to choose your friends carefully. That might be a good idea. But maybe you need someone to bring you out of your shell. Someone else's enthusiasm, someone else's encouragement can make a big difference. So Cancer, allow yourself to be encouraged by another person. Don't just be negative for the sake of it. See what they have to say. See if you can't, respond in a positive way to that. Still, Cancer, I think there is a danger of over defensiveness. Okay, especially if you're in if you're in East Asia or Australia or New Zealand. But I think it applies to everyone to some extent. It's because think about it. The moon is in Leo, and there's a Venus-Mars conjunction, exact Venus-Mars conjunction today in Aquarius. Sort of moon and Leo, they're opposite signs. That might indicate a certain amount of discomfort. Just people annoying you, that's possible. Having to deal with things that you just don't want to deal with. And if you don't want to deal with something, then the best way of not doing that is to avoid people who are pushing you in a particular direction. And so you might take the view that in many respects you don't need other people. I mean, of course you need other people. And, in terms of what you're supposed to be doing today, well, in general, it's a time of your life where you have got a lot to offer. For example, in your work, if you are working, considering your whole direction in life, where you're moving towards, it all matters. And on the way, you're going to find people that need assistance. So it's not just you that can be assisted by others. You can do a lot. You can do some assisting. And I think today, the moon, your ruler, is trine Chiron. Chiron can be the wounded healer, and so can be a healer in general. So moon trine Chiron, maybe in a working or business context, you can help someone, you can heal them, you can deal with a wound. But what kind of wound are we talking about? Are we necessarily talking about some psychological wound? We might actually be talking about a financial wound, and I think that many Cancerians are going to be quite realistic when it comes to money, and are going to be quite good at giving advice about money and material things, how best to save money, if there's how to deal with debt, all that kind of stuff. Cancerians are going to be very good at that, and so there may be someone close to you who's got financial problems. When someone's got financial problems, one doesn't really want to talk about it to them, and usually. But if someone's got financial problems that are an issue, then yes, Cancer, I think you can do something to sort them out. Also, if you're working and you're involved with money in any way, if a company, or maybe it's your company, maybe you're working for someone else's company, something in a financial sense it may not be entirely right, but you may be just the person to sort it out. So do consider that possibility. Finally, I suppose I should say something about relationships. for everyone, it is a day when relationships are going to be important. Reason being because there's a conjunction between Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars. Venus is a very female planet. Mars is a very male planet. Together, that pair is about relationships, and so that means, from your perspective, you may be a little uncomfortable with all of that. The way people want to relate may not feel right. You may feel that there's tension. You can see the things that bring you and other people together, but you can also see the things that tear you and other people apart. You're aware of both things. And so you have to decide what you're going to focus on. Maybe keeping your distance is going to be important to you, but maybe also you can see the fault lines in a relationship. And because you can see the fault lines in a relationship, you are in a position to start to address those fault lines. Start to consider what needs to be done to prevent those fault lines getting out of control, to prevent, I don't know, an earthquake or a seismic shift from happening. But maybe you take the view that fault lines, you can't do anything about it. You just have to accept it, and you can see what can go wrong in a relationship. That's going to be very clear. Any relationship you're in, particularly the closer relationships, you can see the relationship for what it is, and you can see how it could go badly wrong. And that might put you in a position to look at ways in which that fault line can be addressed. How do you deal with it? How can you stop? How can you prevent a relationship from being damaged by something in the end, by something that seems inevitable? But perhaps fault lines are just always there in any relationship, and that's just the way it is. Leo, the moon continues moving through your star sign. I mean, in fact, from the perspective of being in New York, if you're in New York at noon, the moon is, at 13:45 Leo, which is, right in the center of the sign. So, you are feeling pretty good about yourself, as good as you can feel about yourself. I think you have a sense of your own selfhood. You can feel your beating heart in the middle of everything. And at the same time, you do have a sense of purpose, I think, a sense that you're kind of going in the right direction. Reason for that is that the moon, which is, as I just said, is moving through your star sign, is making a trine to the Chiron North Node conjunction. The North Node is about your destiny. It's where you're supposed to be going, and you do feel that you're going in the right direction, and you feel that the actions you take can keep propelling you in the right direction. So what is that? Well, Leo, I mean, I think that you probably understand that if you look down and you keep looking down, you're not going to get anywhere. If you just focus on the minutiae of your immediate environment, if you focus on the facts, you're never going to really get anywhere. You're going to stay in the same place. And there's always that temptation to stay in the same place. Even when you're really close to making the big journey, you might sort of lose your cool. it's a bit like that film. What was it called? Billy Liar. It was a '60s film, and there's this scene in this film right at the end where Billy Liar is in this train in some town in northern England, and he's just about to leave the town and to go to London. His excitement is all there, and everything's fine. He's in a train carriage. He's with an attractive woman who he's just met. Everything is looking good, is exciting, and then right at the last moment, he just says, "Oh, he's just got to go off and get some milk." Those are the days where you could get milk machines or something. Because at an unconscious level, he couldn't deal with it, and so he gets off the train. He just thinks he's just going off the train to get some milk, but of course the train moves, and the train departs, and he misses his chance to go to London, and that's it, and he's going to stay where he is, probably for the rest of his life. You don't want to be like that, Leo. I think you know where you should be going. You need to take the train. You need to stay on the train, and you are aware of what you need to do. I mean, I understand that change can be difficult, and in order to find that change, you might have to be a little bit of a rebel. You might have to do things that don't always get people's approval. Yeah, it's not nice getting disapproval, particularly if you're a Leo. You like getting attention, you like getting praise, but sometimes you've got to risk disapproval in order to uncover your wider destiny. That really does matter. Now, looking at relationships. Today there is a conjunction between Venus and Mars. This conjunction between Venus and Mars has been building up for some time, and it's exact today, and it's exact in Aquarius, and Aquarius is your opposite sign. You certainly have to consider other people. This could be a time when relationships are really moving, when you can get really close to someone. But on the other hand, the moon is in Leo. It's opposite this. It's opposite this Venus-Mars conjunction. This might cause conflict. I think the conflict, in some respects, will be unnecessary. Because if you are clear about who you are, I mean really clear, if you're really clear about who you are and what you want to do, that's fine. You can be in a relationship, in a partnership, be clear about what you want. That will be accepted. The problem is if you are not 100% clear, if you have a little bit of indecision. If there's a little bit of indecision, then that's going to create problems. That's going to create arguments. That's going to create conflict. So if you're with people, you've got, particularly on a one-to-one level, you've got to be very clear about what you want and what you don't want. It's got to be natural. If you're kind of not sure, a bit indecisive, then that indecision is going to feed into the relationship, and it could cause problems. So Leo, it's just important to be confident, and then I think that confidence will be respected, and you will be able to traverse the day at all levels in a very effective way. Virgo, you are feeling a little bit isolated. I don't necessarily mean isolation in a bad sense. It's just that you're very aware that there's you, and there's a world around you. There's the people in the world around you, and they're not, you're not quite on the same wavelength. And your basic view might be to just accept the situation. But it's probably not a good idea to exaggerate. It's true, Virgo, that you certainly need your own space. I think I said something similar yesterday. The moon continues moving through Leo. From a Virgo perspective, the moon is in a sign which is just before your star sign, and when you get that or your ascendant sign or your moon sign, however you're reading these 12 signs. I know some people like to read it through their ascendant, others through their sun, and some others even through their moon. But the moon is in the sign just before Virgo, and so that does gravitate towards a bit of isolation. So you might feel that that's best. That's how you feel you should behave naturally without thinking about it. But should we just always follow what feels natural? We think, just do it because it feels natural. If it feels natural, it's good. Is that right? Well, not necessarily. Especially today when Mercury is quintile Jupiter. So, Mercury is your ruler. Mercury rules Virgo. And today, Mercury is 72 degrees from Jupiter. 72 degrees, that's a fifth of a circle. It's a number 5. It's about style. It's the style you want to create. And with Mercury quintile Jupiter, Virgos can actually create a larger-than-life style. You can be someone that you don't actually feel that you are. Now, you might say, well, that's fake. But again, just because it's fake doesn't mean it's bad. If you make the effort to be positive and optimistic, using perhaps positive, optimistic language, slightly exaggerated gestures, making an effort to meet people, just because you don't want to, I don't know, go to a party. Okay, people don't usually have parties on a Thursday, do they? But whatever, some social meeting of a social nature, just make the effort to go. At the worst, you'll just be wasting your time. But if you make the effort to be sociable, you might be surprised what happens. You might suddenly make connections which you really weren't expecting, and then you may have the opportunity to deal with some kind of block that's been bugging you for a long time, something that has been making you very tense. Because I think actually some Virgos are actually feeling quite tense today. You're not quite sure why you're feeling tense, but you are feeling tense. Okay, I don't want that to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm not telling you to feel tense. You don't have to feel tense, but just if you happen to be feeling tense. By making a special effort to be positive and optimistic, you can perhaps break that tension down, and you can sort of address whatever it is that has been bothering you. And so, Virgo, I do think that is very positive. But it is going to require some effort, and also, Virgo, you do need to spend some time on your own today. Not the whole day, just a few hours, because I think there is a certain sense today of self-healing. I mean, the concept of healing is important for Virgos. Virgo is often associated with healing and the medical profession, service. But today, self-healing is obviously it's not a public activity. It's something you do have to do in private. Just relaxing, doing things that make you feel comfortable, that put you in tune with the cosmos. Perhaps, I don't know, reading comforting books, perhaps spiritual texts, something deep and intense, but deep and intense in that kind of emotional healing kind of way. Just spend a few hours on that today, but don't just obsess about it. There are other things to do, and so in that sense, you need to get your balance right. You've got different priorities, different things you can do, and just don't take things to extremes. And then I think the day for you can actually make you feel a lot better about yourself. So be positive, and just don't forget that you don't have to take things as they are. You can create change, even if to begin with that change is stylistic. Libra. It's another day, Libra, when you need to, I don't say need to, but you should be considering your social environment, the people around you. But you're a Libran. For Librans, the social environment tends to be very important, and so by interacting with society, you're definitely doing the right thing. And on the way, I think you can meet some very interesting people, important people as well, perhaps. The social dimension really does matter. And, we shouldn't forget that today Venus is making an exact conjunction to Mars. We've had this build up over the last few days, but now it's there. Venus is conjunct Mars, and Venus is your ruler. Mars is ruler of Aries, your opposite sign, and so you and someone else can get very close together, can be cooperating very well to get with each other. But as I think I said yesterday, I'm pretty sure I said yesterday, it's very important to consider your own creative needs. Sometimes Libra can be too keen to create balance. I know the symbol for Libra is a set of balances, but balance for the sake of balance is not such a good idea. And if you spend all your time trying to balance yourself with what's going on around you, well, basically you're never going to get anywhere. So you have to think about who you are and what you're supposed to be doing and what you're good at. And today in particular, you need to be focusing on what you're good at. And if you're really good at something, you're probably going to enjoy it. And so if you're good at it and you enjoy doing it, then today you should be doing it. And you should be expecting complete support from other people. And if they don't support you, then you really don't need to have anything to do with them. They're not being helpful. And I suppose that feeds back into the Venus-Mars conjunction. All things being equal, Mars can be a problem because Mars can be about a person who thinks they know best. And there are going to be people that they think they know best, and there are going to be people who try to tell you what to do, or try to say, do that, don't do that. They show their disapproval. And you know, Libra, that's not the kind of person you want in your life, certainly not today. So, yeah, it's just very important that you choose your friends very carefully. Now, you might be thinking, well, you haven't got such a big choice of friends. Well, yeah, I think you've got you do have a big choice of friends and contacts. You know, just because someone is not a friend today doesn't mean they can't be a friend tomorrow. And you know, do consider your whole network. And I've talked about network quite a lot today across a lot of the signs, because I think it's important. And Librans are quite good at networking. And today, that network is something that you can really use. So just consider everyone you know. Consider everyone you half know. You don't have to have met them. Just all those people that are aware of your existence and are perhaps waiting for you to sort of appear and make your presence felt. Yes, so use that and use that creatively. You know, and you know, in that way, you know, you can make things happen, and you can make the most of your make the absolute most of your potential. And you know, in the process, you shouldn't be afraid of being assertive. Certainly being assertive about what is important to you. If you find yourself saying something or doing something because you're trying to please someone else, then there's a good chance that you're doing it wrong. So perhaps that's something you can do today, Libra. Just consider your motivations for everything you say and do. If your motivation is about yourself, about expressing your creativity, about understanding your real essence and vitality, that's fine. But if your motive is about keeping the balance, pleasing others, making sure you don't get criticism, then that's probably not the right approach. So as you go through the day, do bear that in mind. Scorpio, like yesterday, Scorpio, I think you're going to be fairly ambitious. I think that you're going to want to be seen and heard. I mean, yeah, even though you're a Scorpio, Scorpios do have a reputation for being for keeping themselves to themselves. But yeah, right now you want to be seen, you want to be heard, you want to be appreciated, and that is particularly the case in your at work. If you are working today in your career and your business, you're gonna want feedback. And if you can be told that you're great, so much the better. And it is actually okay to demand appreciation. If you're not being appreciated, then something may be wrong. Perhaps you're dealing with the wrong people, working for the wrong people, even. So do consider that. And there may be certain people who are a little annoying. They want attention. They think that they know best, and you will, I think, perhaps have to negotiate these people. I don't think it will be hard work. I think it just requires a bit of time and a bit of thought. Just listen to your feelings, and then I think you're going to have a good idea about the best way to proceed. And also, Scorpio, I think your social skills are going to be very good today. because there is this Venus-Mars conjunction, and Venus, the planet of relationships, which rules Taurus, your opposite sign. Venus is exactly conjunct Mars, your ruling planet. So that gives you it gives you a lot of charisma, but it allows you to smooth things over without compromising your own needs and interests. So yes, just because someone is annoying, just because you're not being treated properly, it doesn't mean you have to fly off the handle. If you're intelligent about the situation, I think you can resolve it very quickly, and just be able to move on. Now, another thing going on is that the moon is making a trine to Chiron. I have sort of mentioned that quite a lot today. Chiron is it's a slow mover. It stays there for some time. So at the moment, Chiron is in a part of your chart can be connected with health. It can be connected with organization, and with the moon trine Chiron, it seems that you can help people, perhaps through helping them organize themselves. That doesn't mean you have to literally go in and organize someone. It means that you can perhaps make some suggestions about how someone can better organize their life. You'll also be good at making suggestions about how someone organizes their health and well-being. You don't have to pretend to be a doctor unless you are a doctor, but just a few suggestions, common sense suggestions about health. It might be very simple, like telling someone to stop smoking. It's a good day to tell people to stop smoking. It's a good day for telling people to give up bad habits. So in fact, if someone has got has got bad habits, which seems to be undermining their health, Scorpio, then now is the perfect time to step in and sort the problem out. So yes, so that is something you can do today, Scorpio. Now, I'm not promising that today is going to be spectacular. I think the Venus-Mars conjunction, which I've talked about a lot, is probably the main thing going on, and it can be very good for relationships, because Venus and Mars, they are the relationship planets. Mars is your ruler. Venus and Mars are exact. Just don't be too defensive. Remember, you are represented by Mars. Venus represents the other person. Mars can be quite a defensive energy, and just one wrong word, just one tactless word, of being putting someone down with one word. You don't mean to put them down, but once you've said that word, it could really spoil things. So, be careful what you say, be careful what you do, unless, of course, you feel that you're trying to get rid of someone, or you're trying to get someone to back off. That's fine. But otherwise, do consider that. You are in a powerful position, and with that, if you are in a powerful position, it means that you mustn't put too much energy into something, because if you put too much energy into something, you get an exaggerated response, and you might end up causing a lot of damage. But don't worry about that, Scorpio. I'm sure you know what to do, and that you will use your power responsibly. Sagittarius. The moon continues to move through Leo. That moon in Leo is really important to you, Sagittarius. The reason it's important is because really, it's the only planet unless you count Chiron, in a fire sign at the moment. It's your spark. You need your spark. The spark is always important to Sagittarius, and that spark is, it's a bit vulnerable. It maybe won't take much to put that spark out. I know that sounds a bit negative, but you don't want to take things. You don't want to push things too far. You don't want to put yourself into a position where you get negative feedback from the world around you. So if there's something that you find exciting, that really, really appeals to you, don't push it too far. Don't talk about it too much, because if you talk about it too much, you might find that you get a negative response, and as soon as that negative response happens, it could be like the flame goes out, and that flame, as I said, it's vulnerable. So if you, in terms of your creativity and you working out where you want to take your life, you perhaps do need to do a lot of work on your own. That doesn't mean to say you're having. That does not mean to say that it's a day when you're away from other people, but I'm talking more about your private world, that world you don't always reveal. It's a world you don't have to reveal. Now, I understand you're a Sagittarius, and Sagittarians do like to be open and honest, and there's always a place for openness and honesty. But in terms of what's really important to you, the thing that you're really trying to develop, you need to, I think, keep quiet about it. Let the thing grow. If there are questions you have about whether it's the right thing to do, I think you can resolve those questions on your own. You don't have to necessarily ask other people lots of questions, because their questions, their answers may not be helpful. And when you look at other people's responses to you, you look at where other people are behaving. You do have to consider why they're behaving in the way they're behaving. Are people behaving because they're rational? I'm thinking about all the people around you, including people very close to you. Sort of do think about their behaviour, because there's a bit of tension around today. The people close to you, there's something bothering them, and there's some danger that they may take out that tension on you if you're not careful. So don't give them a chance. And even asking someone a question, something that's bothering you, asking a question, the reply might not be what you were expecting, and the reply may be more emotionally charged than you had imagined. So do consider that possibility, and don't think that any one person out there is terribly important. You have the capacity right now to mix with lots of different people. So you don't have to rely on any one person. Indeed, you should not be relying on any one person today. If you're honest with yourself, you've got lots of contacts. Some of these contacts, you might not have talked to someone for ages, but you can renew that contact very easily at the moment. There's absolutely no need to be reliant on anyone. Now, one final thing, I have suggested that you should keep a lot of your thoughts to yourself. particularly those thoughts about your wider existential direction in life. But that is not to say that you've got nothing to say. In fact, you've got quite a lot to say, and I think you have to just consider what kind of stuff you should be saying. I think it's a day for talking about things that perhaps other people are interested in, talking about anything except the things that are really important. So maybe even Sagittarius, you should make a special effort to talk, to be communicative, to get in touch with people, but just keep it light. Don't allow conversations to get deep, because that's really what people want, and that's how you're right now today, and that's how you're going to be on best form. And by keeping things light, but also by keeping up the conversation, I think that you're quite good at that if you're a typical Sagittarian. People are going to appreciate that. In fact, it might be a good idea not to talk about what's on your mind, but to talk about what other people are interested in. They'll really like that. They'll really go for that. By talking to other people about their favorite subjects, you will make yourself very popular. Capricorn. Okay, Capricorn, it's probably not the most exciting day today. I mean, it's because the moon is in Leo. From a Capricorn perspective, Leo is it's a fairly low-profile sign. It's quite introspective. It's often connected with sort of deeper emotions. So that may say something about what's happening today. Although I should point out that the moon does go through Leo every month. Once a month, it moves through Leo, and the introspection is not just about you. It's about some of the people you're interacting with. Other people are wanting to hold things back, and maybe you should just accept that. And things could be especially difficult if there are discussions about money. So the moon in Leo is making opposition aspects to a Venus-Mars conjunction, and that could create strain in terms of attitudes towards money. So if you start to talk about money, there may be disagreements. And I think you had this yesterday, but I think we have a continuation today. So I think that you have to tread carefully, and ideally you won't bring up financial subjects. That doesn't mean to say that money is not important. You can certainly work through financial matters on your own, but bringing in other people might be a problem unless you feel that now is the time to really bring things out into the open and to have an honest discussion about it. Because now that would be a great time, because I think if you really discuss money, the truth will start to become clear. The truth might be painful. Okay, maybe not painful for you, but maybe painful for someone else. And yes, that might be something that you have to involve yourself with, but probably not if you don't want to. As far as looking at your family, I think your family is quite important today. I think, and you're very aware of kind of what's going on with your family. And I'm not just talking about your immediate family. I'm sort of talking about your extended family as well. And if any family members have issues, problems, something's bothering them, I think you'll be very aware of this. You'll pick up on it. And once you've picked up on it, I do think you'll be in a position to do something about it. So if things aren't quite right in your family and domestic life, then that's probably the thing that matters. You understand what's going on, and you can actually sort the problem out. So that is something you might want to consider today. You can be a great force for good as far as your family is concerned, and you can bring everything down to earth and create a sense of domestic harmony. Even if creating domestic harmony might be difficult to begin with, and really that's about it. There are things I said yesterday which I kind of don't want to repeat myself, but I suppose I should repeat myself. I did say yesterday, when talking about your star sign, or your sun sign, or your ascendant sign, or your moon sign, depending on how you want to read these, to look at my 12-sign forecast. I did say yesterday that, when it comes to money, regardless of whatever issues, problems there are, you are quite charismatic and forceful. If you want some money, or you want to create a financial change, you'll be a difficult person to resist. And today it's the same thing. It's more so, because the Venus-Mars conjunction is exact. But I suppose the only problem today is that there might be more of a negative reaction. People might be a little more resistant to you, but a little more resistant to you. Fundamentally, Capricorn, if you want something, especially if it's of a sort of material and financial nature, then I think there is a really good chance that you will be able to get it through the force of your personality and indeed through your general charisma. Aquarius, it's another day when the world outside can't really be ignored. That is because the moon, it does continue to move through. It continues to move through Leo, your opposite sign. So Leo represents everything that is outside, everything that you don't have control over. That could be the world outside in general. It could also be particular people, people that you have to deal with. You don't want to necessarily deal with them, but you do have to accept that they are there. And you do have to accept that these people have weaknesses. They take themselves seriously. Everyone takes themselves seriously. We all take ourselves seriously. Sometimes, Aquarius, you can sort of be so detached that you don't fully get that. But yes, everyone takes themselves seriously, and you need to take that fact seriously yourself, that other people take themselves seriously. So in your social interactions, consider the possibility that you're dealing with fragile egos. Everyone you meet potentially has a fragile ego, and fragile egos need to be respected. You might not want to pay anyone that respect, but I think it's worth your while. So, Aquarius, however much it hurts, try to say something nice today. Try to reassure someone that they are wonderful. It may not come naturally, but I do think it's the right thing to do, and it will just mean that things are, things run much more smoothly. Particularly if you're involved in relationships, partnerships, for whatever reason, whether it's romance, business, or whatever. Just a bit of niceness on your part can go a long way. And I should also say, Aquarius, that really your social skills today are actually better than you realize. You might not think that they're up to much, perhaps because you're not in the mood, you've got other things to think about. But we mustn't forget that there is a Venus-Mars conjunction today, which is exact in your star sign. That makes you an attractive, charismatic person. People are going to pay attention to you. So don't forget that. Also, you know how to bring people together. I think I said that yesterday, and it continues to be the case. It's a time when you can bring people together, when you can show to people a reason why they should be cooperating with one another. People might not think there's any reason to cooperate, but you know that there's a reason. And I think today, Aquarius, you will be very good at explaining that reason. But it doesn't come naturally. Left to your own devices, you would just perhaps want to just retreat. But no, that's not the right approach. You have got a lot to offer. And in some respects, you're on this planet to make the world a better place. So, you've got to realize that. Pisces. Well, Pisces, you probably think that there's not much to do today. I think that's what you're coming into the day with. You just feel that, just let things run their course. But I don't think that would be the right approach. I think there's a lot you can do, but you are going to have to make the effort. So at the beginning of this video, when I was sort of giving a sort of general introduction, I mentioned the fact that, not the general introduction, when I was talking about what was going on astrologically, the broad picture, I mentioned the fact that there was a quintile between Mercury and Jupiter. And this quintile does have an impact on you, or it can have an impact on you. It's up to you. So, Jupiter is your ruling planet, and it is 72 degrees from Mercury. And, Mercury is the planet of communication. So your first inclination, may not be to say much. You might take the view that people aren't interested in what you've got to say. But the quintile is an aspect about style, about something that you create, that's something that you want to create. And what you can create is words. You can create words left, right, and centre. Once you start, to begin with, you might feel that you've got nothing to say. But once you start talking, one word will lead to another word, and you will find that you can't stop. And I think that is a good thing. People want to hear your voice. And, once you start talking, and once you start, once you develop a talkative style, I think that will open many doors for you. But just remember, you are a Pisces. Pisceans are, Pisces is a sensitive, intuitive sign. and you can know what to say, what is the right thing to say. And so as you go through today, you will be making lots of connections through your words. And just don't be self-conscious. Don't think that you're talking too much. It's absolutely appropriate. And some people might actually want to know what's on your mind. So in that sense, don't be shy. And this Mercury quintile Jupiter can actually be useful in terms of how you get on with other people, at whatever level. You might not think that you and certain other people have much in common. That you might not feel that there's any real connection between you and this other person. And in some respects, you're probably right. People have completely different priorities, completely different personalities, and in most situations they won't have anything to do with each other. But today you can create connections. You can almost create connections out of nothing. Those connections might actually be quite tenuous, at least to begin with. Maybe they're based on a shared experience or just a shared word. Talking to a stranger, saying one word, saying hello, asking a follow-up question, forcing a conversation out of nowhere, and that is something Pisces that you will be very good at doing today. So do that and see what happens. Because in some respects, you are in a position where you can create something out of nothing. And once you've started creating something, particularly in a social sense, you'll then be able to start to organize it. And so from a sort of career business perspective, or perhaps if you're looking for jobs or new contacts, once you just get one piece of positive feedback, once you get one connection, you'll just be able to make another connection, another connection, another connection. And then you can really create some very strong links. And that is really something you can do today. And so, it is a sense today in which I believe that you can create something out of nothing. Now, at the same time, I do understand, Pisces, that you may feel a certain sense of tension. Probably a tension that you feel that things are not quite right. You feel that the world around you is not fully organized properly, and you want to change it, but you feel you can't change it. But again, perhaps it goes back to how you connect with other people. If something is not right, okay, you may be able to sort it out yourself. You may feel that you need other people to sort it out for you. Now, if that is the case, then you have the ability to bring people in who can help sort things out. So the tension links into that as well. So if you are feeling tense about something, maybe that is a sign that you need to resolve the tension by reaching out to the wider world and just making a special effort and just creating new connections. And you can do it. So overall, Pisces, it's a day that at first sight doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But through your conscious efforts and by developing the right style, you can make it a day that becomes and turns out to be very successful. Okay, that's the astrology, the day from an astrological perspective. And now I want to look at the I Ching. So as always, I ask the question, what is Thursday going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 40. Hexagram 40 is about deliverance. It's about finding a way out. So many of us may be in a situation where we feel that something's going wrong. We're not happy with the situation. And we're wondering how to get out of it. And very simply, deliverance is telling us, yes, there is a way out. And so if we're not happy, we can leave. But there's this complication here. The third line moves. And the third line in the I Ching is often unfortunate. And it's indicating that as we contemplate our own deliverance, as we contemplate trying to exit the scene, we may have a moment of vulnerability. We may be putting ourselves in a situation where we could lose something, perhaps in a material sense. And it's the kind of thing that we should be more careful with. We're just going to lose something because we're not careful. The image that I Ching gives is of someone who is fundamentally in a vulnerable position, is kind of not particularly well off, but they have one piece of wealth which is really quite ostentatious, and it's right in front of them. Everyone can see it, and because everyone can see this one valuable thing that a poor person has, that valuable thing is vulnerable to being stolen. I suppose it's kind of like, I don't know, someone who is in really humble circumstances who, I don't know, suddenly wins a Rolls Royce. If you're living in a sort of poor derelict neighborhood and you suddenly win a Rolls Royce, or what do you do with a Rolls Royce? I mean, logically you should sell the Rolls Royce because it's not appropriate, but if you decide to keep a Rolls Royce, then you're going to lose it, aren't you? Because Rolls Royces need to be maintained, they need to have secure parking and all of that kind of thing. And so that might relate to some of the things we own. Depends on the situation. I mean, it might be I don't know, it might be walking down the road looking at our expensive cell phone. We're holding, I don't know, $1,000 worth of cell phone. I don't know why anyone would pay $1,000 for a cell phone, but I think some people do. But walking down the road holding an expensive cell phone, or wearing expensive jewelry, wearing, I don't know, a gold necklace in an ostentatious way. That's the kind of thing that makes one vulnerable to theft. And so in terms of this hexagram deliverance, it should be about getting out of a situation that is difficult. We shouldn't be doing things to make our situation even worse. And I think we need to be true to ourselves and true to our level. I mean, however much money we have in the bank, however much we're earning, it's kind of saying that our style and the way we present ourselves should be in keeping with what we have. We shouldn't go over our own station. Of course, that's quite a hierarchical way of looking at things. We're dealing with the I Ching, and I Ching is quite hierarchical. Anyway, this hexagram deliverance, it does move. And it does move to hexagram 32, which is duration. This reminds us that we should be focusing on the things we are good at, the things that we are, the things that relate to our past, and by focusing on that, and also, of course, our talents, the things we're really good at, that's the way forward. We should nurture what we have. We certainly shouldn't be moving into new areas. If we want to be successful, if we want to avoid the kind of problems that I talked about when looking at the previous hexagram deliverance, we do need to be true to ourselves and focus on what we're good at, and not try to be someone who we are not. Okay, so I now want to go back to the astrology, and I do want to consider the full moon over the weekend. There is a full moon. I don't really necessarily want to say a lot about it. But I thought it'd be a good idea to give a preview. I mean, I've already discussed this full moon briefly when I looked at the astrology for the week ahead. But I just want to have another. I want to just have another look at it. So here is the full moon. I have set this full moon for London, just out of convenience. This full moon, which is on February the 24th, 2024, so that is it's on London, it's in London, it would be on a Saturday at 12:30 p.m, so sort of around lunchtime. So, if you're in the Americas, it would be much earlier. If you're in Europe, Asia, Australasia, it will be later, but the positions of the planets is not going to change. So this full moon the moon is at 5:23 Virgo, Sun is at 5:23 Pisces. So when you've got a Virgo Pisces full moon, the basic issue is one of organization versus chaos. The organization represents the moon in Virgo, trying to sort things out, trying to get a clear idea about what's going on in the world at a time when the sun is in Pisces. The Pisces is the ocean. The Pisces threatens to wash everything away. There is Virgo on the beach trying to make sandcastles. Immaculate sandcastles, perhaps sandcastles with flying buttresses and everything done perfectly, and then the sea comes along and just washes it all away. And so that could be a problem with the full moon. And so, what we have to do with this full moon, as we perhaps have to do with every Virgo full moon at this time of year, is that whatever we're trying to organize, we have to make sure that what we're trying to organize is resistant to change, can deal with change, can adapt as things change. So building sandcastles is something very temporary. Whatever changes we make to our sandcastle, it's going to come to nothing as soon as the tide comes in. So that's certainly something we have to consider. And also, in terms of how long a full moon lasts, this full moon is likely to last at least a couple of weeks. So in a way, it is a pattern for the next 2 weeks. It could be the pattern for the next month. Now, I think the most important thing about this full moon is the fact that it is on the Mercury-Saturn midpoint. So, this is, we can see this. You see, Mercury is at 211 Pisces. Saturn is at 9, was it 9? Is that 9:15 Pisces? So the midpoint of Mercury and Saturn, the Sun is right on the midpoint. So this full moon is strongly flavored by a Mercury-Saturn conjunction. If you are trying to discuss this full moon, describe this full moon, you have to see it in terms of Mercury and Saturn. I think this is obvious. So it's not just a Mercury-Sun-Saturn conjunction, it's the fact that the Sun is on the Mercury-Saturn midpoint. And that's why I described it as a farewell full moon. Mercury and Saturn are about farewells. I mean, they have to be, don't they? I mean, Mercury is about how we communicate. Saturn can be about breaking things off. It's about limits. And so with this full moon, I think that it might suggest to many of us the end of something. That we have to say goodbye to something. It might be goodbye to a stage in our life. Something has come to an end, and we have to accept that. And I think we may have to say goodbye to certain people and certain situations that we've got very used to. We've got comfortable with them. They are part of our life, and with this full moon, it's time to move on. And ideally, to say the goodbye. Little rituals are important. So if something is coming to an end, if it's a person, a formal goodbye is a good sign that something has come to an end. If a part of our life is coming to an end, doing something to mark that ending could be a good idea. I don't know, some little ritual, doing something, visiting somewhere. If you know that you're going to never go somewhere again, maybe go there one last time, pay your respects, some silent contemplation. That's a good way of marking this full moon. So that's the most important thing about this full moon. And this full moon is going to affect some people more than others. So last weekend, I looked at a number of people who I believed would be affected by this full moon. I thought that Prince Harry, because Prince Harry has his Mercury at 5 Virgo, and so this is right on Harry's Mercury. Harry has got Prince Harry has got transiting Mercury Saturn midpoint on his Mercury, so maybe Harry has to say some goodbyes. I've already talked about other celebrities and famous people who've got this. I'm not going to go over them again. I suppose, is there anything positive to say about it? Well, there's always something positive, but saying goodbyes is actually quite a positive thing to be doing, because in order to make progress in the world, in our lives, we have to move from one stage to another stage. People often don't make progress because they hang around in a situation that has passed its sell-by date, and so it is a full moon about making progress, because it's allowing us to recognize that certain things have passed their sell-by date, and being able to move on from that. Now, as far as which parts of the world are going to be affected by this full moon, you will notice that Saturn is exactly on the midheaven in this chart. But I have set this chart for London. So for London and for the UK, I think this is quite an important horoscope. Sorry, or at least the horoscope of this full moon. Let me just show you the astrocartography of this. So I'm just going to show you a map of the world. I hope you can see that. So that's a map of the world. What this map does is it shows all the places where that chart for the full moon is angular. So I talked about a Sun, Mercury, Venus, Sun on the Mercury, Saturn midpoint. And you can see these lines. So going right the way through the British Isles. So you've got the Sun going through Wales and going through Madrid, goes down through West Africa and down all the way through Antarctica. So all the places where the Sun is on the midheaven, there could be important events over the next couple of weeks. So, okay, technically that's Wales and Scotland, but I think we're allowed a bit of leeway there. It actually goes through Ireland as well. So the UK and Ireland and Spain, possibly Morocco, going down into Western Africa, could really feel this full moon. I would have said it will be quite a difficult influence, and we know that the UK government is in big trouble. It's just lost a couple of by-elections. It's all a bit of a disaster as far as I gather, at least in a political sense, the UK. I haven't really been following Ireland, but I know that there's a certain amount of discontent in Ireland. I'm not going to go into details. I haven't studied Ireland, so I'm not going to risk getting it wrong. So if you're Irish, you might want to consider this this full moon, because it might affect Ireland. You can see there's Dublin. Dublin is not very far from having the Sun exactly on the midheaven. Spain, likewise. I don't know what's going on in Spain, but this line, Sun, goes right the way through Madrid. We will have to see. So going back to the UK chart, going back to the new moon chart, let's get rid of this. So this could be represent sort of governmental issues. But you see, we already know the government's in trouble. So I'm not telling you anything we don't know. But I'm just saying that the astrology certainly confirms the fact that it is difficult. That I think that the government is probably going to try to hang on as long as possible before holding an election, because right now, they're going to lose whatever, but maybe they might take the view that it would be better to hold an election later in the year. And here is the UK's chart. It's not the UK's chart. It's the old chart it's a chart for December the 25th, 1066, when William I was crowned. I know it says December the 25th, but it was actually December the 25th. It's just a difference between a Gregorian and a Julian calendar. And if we compare, if we put England and we look at the full moon, just to get an idea about what's going on, you can see that at the time of the coronation of William I, Mars was at 828 Aquarius. So this Venus-Mars conjunction that I've been talking about is right on Britain's Mars, and so Mars could be about the military. It could be just about anger in general. I suppose. This full moon, I should say, has Saturn on the midheaven, and that may say something about the royal family. Might say something about the King Charles and what's happening there. It just doesn't look happy from a UK perspective. So it is a bit difficult. And I mean, a reminder here that Saturn. Saturn is currently in Pisces, at 9 degrees 15 Pisces, so it's just gone opposition. It's just opposition the UK's Jupiter. So, Britain's ability to be itself, to expand outwards, to have a presence on the world stage is really difficult. We might also see this sixth house, Jupiter on the sixth house and Saturn opposition Jupiter, as being issues about health, maybe the National Health Service, or of course the fact that there are concerns about the health of certain members of the royal family. One final chart I want to look at from a UK perspective. This is not a chart I've looked at before, but it is a chart of the leader of the opposition, Keir Starmer. So Keir Starmer, it seems he is almost certain to be Britain's next Prime Minister. And I'm not saying that from an astrological point of view, because the Conservatives are so far behind in the polls that Labour is almost certainly going to win. And if Labour is going to win, that would mean that Labour's leader, Keir Starmer, is going to become Prime Minister. Yet, in terms of Keir Starmer, and we look at the full moon for Keir Starmer, Keir Starmer has got his sun. He's got a Sun-Pluto conjunction. I don't have a time of birth, by the way, for Keir Starmer. So I know I've got an ascendant there, but I don't know. That's just for noon. We don't have a time of birth. So Keir Starmer has a Sun conjunct Pluto in Virgo. I mean, he doesn't seem a very Sun-Pluto conjunction kind of person. He doesn't seem to be a particularly strong leader. He seems a bit indecisive. He doesn't seem to have an especially powerful personality. He's just a good lawyer. He's perhaps very focused on detail. Perhaps he hides some of who he is. He's a Virgo. But he does have Saturn opposition, coming up to the opposition of his Sun. And Saturn is also going, so Saturn is going to be opposition his Sun-Pluto conjunction. So although this looks like a really good time for Keir Starmer, there may be something brewing that he's not fully aware of. Maybe his authority is going to be challenged. He's got a lot of stick from members of his party for his attitude to Gaza. People on the left have attacked him for just being too supportive of Israel from their perspective. So it might be something about that. Might be something about his authority. Maybe something about his just about his private life. We'll never know about it. And just because you have Saturn opposition your Sun doesn't mean anything's going to happen. I had Saturn square my Sun about a week ago, just a few days ago. Okay, it might still get to me. I still haven't seen it yet, and I completely forgot about it. So just because you've got Saturn hitting your Sun, it doesn't necessarily mean anything is going to happen. But if you're Keir Starmer, if you're leader of the opposition, this is possibly relevant. So it'll be interesting to see if he hits any challenges over the next week or two. Okay, finally, I wanted to indulge myself by looking at my horoscope. I shouldn't really look at my horoscope. But I had this suggestion. I was talking about Chiron, and one of the commenters suggested that, Lisa Michelle, she commented that Chiron can relate to grandparents, or grandfather in particular. So here's my chart. Again, you can stop watching this video if you don't want to know about my chart. This is just a bit of indulgence at the end. So I was born on May the 30th, 1962, at 3:35 a.m. in Redhill in England. Now, interesting thing about my time of birth, I always thought I was born at 3:30. And then in 2017, my mother died. And then a bit later, I got this envelope through the post, with, I don't know, bits of paper, bits of detail, which, I don't know, stuff, family material. And in this envelope was a tag from the hospital where I was born. I was born in the East Surrey Hospital in Redhill. And this tag was my... I don't know, was it attached? I don't know where this tag was attached, but and it said, it was from 1962, and it said I was born at 3:35. So I had spent decade, my whole life thinking I was born at 3:30, and then I suddenly find I'm born at 3:35. I thought my ascendant was 2 degrees 27 Taurus, and in fact it was 4:54 Taurus. You might ask, well, so what? Well, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a massive deal. I mean, look at my chart. I've got Mercury at 9:53 Gemini, 1953 Gemini. That means that my ascendant is exactly 45 degrees from my Mercury. It's in semi-square to my Mercury. So that was a big surprise. I didn't realize quite how prominent my Mercury actually is. By the way, I don't have a particularly strong Mercury just because it's in Gemini, it's retrograde, and it's getting a bit close to the sun. Now, the only thing I really wanted to talk about was my Chiron. So when we learn astrology, I think most of us, when we start learning astrology, we start off with our own charts. If it makes sense for us, then we can start to project it onto other people. I mean, so that's kind of how it works, I think, to an extent, at least to begin with. And so when I started learning astrology, I learnt the basics, and then I did find this book on asteroids, and people were talking about Chiron or whatever. They were these nice shiny things which could make the chart more interesting. I never really got into asteroids, but then there was Chiron. And I found that my Chiron is at 10 degrees 47 Pisces, and my Jupiter is at 10:58 Pisces. In other words, I have an exact Chiron conjunction. And that's a problem, because I cannot distinguish between my Jupiter and my Chiron. They're the same thing, because they are so close. It doesn't matter what harmonic you use. They are in the same place. I can distinguish between my Sun and my Mercury. I can distinguish between my Mercury and my Venus. I can see how they work differently. But having that Jupiter conjunct Chiron is too close. And so as a result of that, I've never really used Chiron. Not really. In fact, I've only started really looking at Chiron in the last few months because I've been doing this YouTube channel. People watching his videos want to know about Chiron. And so I've sort of talked about Chiron more than I would have done otherwise. So the question is, what does that Chiron mean? Chiron, one view of Chiron is that it's some wound that I have. What would that wound be? And then I have this suggestion about my grandfather. Okay, so you want to know about my grandfather. Obviously, like everyone, I've got two grandfathers. My paternal grandfather died when I was, I don't know, about a month old. I don't think I have any, well, I obviously have no memory of him. So I'm thinking I should be thinking more about my maternal grandfather, who died when I was 7. And I have an extremely good memory. By and large, I have a good memory, and I can remember him. So so if I want to understand that Chiron, the theory would be I have to look at my grandfather. And all that he represents. So my grandfather was an Anglican priest. I have memories of my grandfather, telling me Bible stories. We had was the normal skeletons in the closet with my grandfather. My grandfather was very traumatized by the First World War. I don't think he actually fought in the First World War. I think one time I thought he was a chaplain in the First World War, but he wasn't. I don't think he was at all. I think he was studying for the he was a curate just at the early beginnings of his career as an Anglican priest. And I think he would have felt a lot of guilt about that, because his brother did fight in the First World War and was killed in the First World War, and he never really talked about that. And so you've got sort of a drama there, a massive trauma there. But my grandfather, his father, was an Anglican priest as well. So there's a sort of priest line in the family there, and then so he was a priest. Now, my paternal grandfather, his father was also an Anglican priest. He died of smallpox. He was a priest he was a vicar in Scarborough in Yorkshire, I think. He died of smallpox, and so, thing is, I'm thinking there are a lot of priests in the family, on both grandfathers, and when I was in my early 20s, just as I was leaving university, I absolutely felt I had a calling to the priesthood. Absolutely, it was sure. It was absolutely certain I had it. But I didn't know what to do with this calling. And you see, I've had this calling on several occasions. And I'm not even saying I'm a Christian right now. I'm not necessarily saying that. Am I a Christian? Am I not a Christian? I don't know. It depends on the situation. But the problem about being called to a priesthood, if you're me, is that the trouble is I don't like churches. And honestly, I don't like. I mean, when I say I don't like churches, I don't say I don't like churches. I mean, when I go to church, I find I don't think that God exists in churches. And at the same time, I find that the whole sort of church rituals, whatever religion it is, just it doesn't really mean much to me. It feels it just feels too much like the establishment and that kind of thing. It doesn't really do anything for me. And so I think that is a contradiction for me, which I think may actually be about what my Jupiter conjunct Chiron really is about. I do have a calling, but it's a calling that's impossible. It's a calling with no calling. I mean, how can you be called to something where you where you just can't stand the whole establishment? I went to a boarding school. I was forced to go to church pretty much every day from the age of 8 to the age of 18. It's just no way. That certainly turned me off it. But again, I don't even know if I'm a Christian. I'm probably not a Christian. I'll perhaps make a video about that at some stage. Although am I? I don't know. It's just very complicated for me. But I still feel this call. So what do you do when you have an impossible call? A calling which is impossible, and it's real. It was real, absolutely real, and I still believe it is my calling. So there's an absolute contradiction there. And Jupiter is the planet of religion. Jupiter is ruler of my 9th house. Jupiter is, it's in some respects it's a strong Jupiter because it's in mutual reception by exaltation with Venus in Cancer. And you can see Jupiter is trine Neptune, grand trine in water. But Jupiter really wants to be expressed, although you could say Jupiter is weak because it's a daytime planet, and I was born at night, and Jupiter is in Pisces, Jupiter is a masculine sign in a masculine planet in a feminine sign. So perhaps that Chiron is about just being rejected from one's calling, rejected from one's religion. And I feel this in America, particularly Jupiter and Chiron in America. Coming to America is living in America. It's like the moment I came to America, it's like God disappeared. God just disappeared from my life because I regard America as being a completely godless society. I mean, even though I'm English, and atheism is supposed to be the official religion in the UK, in America, there is no God as far as I'm concerned. I almost became an atheist in America. That's the experience of living in America. Kind of turned me into an atheist. Almost turned me into an atheist. And so I would see that as being perhaps how Jupiter conjunct Chiron may actually be working. Jupiter. Remember that the Greek for Jupiter is Dios, which means God. By the way, my maternal grandfather, he went to Cambridge. He has a classics degree, and he used to teach other priests Greek, apparently, so that they could read the New Testament in the original Greek. I don't know any Greek, by the way, hardly any, but I do know that the Greek for Jupiter is, you look at Ptolemy, it's in the Greek parallel text, it says Dios. So Jupiter is about God, and so coming to America and astrocartography, if you do my astrocartography chart for where I am now, near Seattle, I have Jupiter conjunct Chiron exactly on the IC, and so this Jupiter-Chiron thing has been really hit, living in a society where there is no God. At least from my perspective, I think that's because, as far as I can see, the religion here is money. People's religion in America, more than anywhere else, it seems to be facilitated by their own material needs, but more so than in Europe. I don't think I'm the only one who's expressed this, but yeah, it is a godless society, and I think that. Perhaps that is, it's a real Jupiter and Chiron place for me. And so how do I actually resolve this problem? How do I resolve this wound? This wound that, my grandparents, going back to my grandparents, in fact, on both sides, were bringing to me this sort of genetic inheritance of priesthood. Both sides, maternal, on my maternal and paternal side, indeed, not just any priest, Anglican priesthood, both sides of my family. So that was perhaps what I was kind of destined to be, but I'm not. I can't be. It's absolutely not. That is perhaps the wound, and so maybe that's where astrology comes in. Maybe that's what it was always about. Astrology for me is. Actually a way of finding God, of finding evidence of the supernatural, finding evidence that something really, really exists, that something really works out there. So that when you see, for example, let me move away from my chart, let's look at another chart. When we look at the chart of Hiroshima, when the atomic bomb exploded over Hiroshima, it was a uranium bomb. And you can see at that exact moment the bomb exploded over Hiroshima, Uranus was exactly on the midheaven. And, to me, that's an example of astrology speaking. That is... that chart is such an important event in world history, and it's not just some coincidence. Uranus rules uranium. That's when it exploded. That chart describes the event perfectly, and that's what astrology is perhaps about. Astrology is about finding God, and hence that goes back to my Jupiter conjunct Chiron and where that wound actually is. Okay, I'm sorry, really sorry to have indulged myself there, but that's enough about me, and I am going to wrap it up. So, yeah, thank you very much for listening. Again, sorry about the indulgence, but I thought I would talk about me and Chiron. That's something I wanted to do. That's something I wanted to get out of the way. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, you found it interesting, I'd be grateful if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed and you enjoyed the video, then I'd be grateful if you were to subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.